It's 2022, so let's kick it off with the customary workshop tour. Let's do it. What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to the workshop. I hope you're all doing well. Now, like I said, it's 2022, and usually the very first video I put out every year is a quick workshop tour, just to show you guys around the workshop, show you what's changed over the year, and introduce myself to anybody who's new to the channel and give you guys a quick look around. So if you are new here, welcome along. My name is John McGrath. I'm a woodworking electrician. So I'm a professional electrician and I'm a hobbyist woodworker, and basically I'm sharing my hobby with all you guys in the world of YouTube out there who are into woodworking as well. So in this video, I'm going to give you guys a quick run around the workshop. Now I'm going to take this as quick and as fast as is possible because I've covered so much of this stuff ad nauseum. So a lot of you guys will be familiar with what I have in my workshop. So I'll stop at what's new. I'll answer some questions that come up over the year, and there's full videos on everything you will see here. So if I rush through something and you want to know more about it, there will be a video on it. So just check my back catalogue and you guys will find videos on everything I'm going to show you in my workshop. So let's just take a quick run around, answer a few questions that come up, and show you my workshop. Let's do it. Now, just before we run around the workshop, I want to thank Tradeify for sponsoring today's video. Now, Tradeify is a complete job management platform designed for tradespeople. So if you're self-employed, you're in the trades, on the tools all day, and you struggle with your office work, definitely check it out. I use it. I reckon it saves me about 8 hours a week in office work. It's a real headache and time saver, so I've no problem recommending it to you guys. It's all your administration office work in one place, like I said. It's desktop and mobile based, so you can carry your office with you in your pocket, both Android and iOS. Everything from quoting to invoicing to scheduling jobs, timesheets, even tying in with your accountant to software at the end of the year. It's fantastic for that, or your actual accountant as well. It will save you time and headaches. So highly recommend it. If you're a plumber, carpenter, electrician, painter, decorator, whatever, on the tools and struggling with your office work, definitely check it out. So I'll link it below. There's a 14-day free trial, no strings attached. You can play around with the full job management platform and see how it works for you. And there's a promo code MANINSHED, which gives you 50% off for your first 3 months. So save yourself some time and some headaches if you're on the tools all day and that office work is getting on top of you. Definitely check it out. All links below. Now let's get around and have a look at this workshop. Okay, so I'm going to start where I always start, and right inside the door into my workshop is my dust extractor. Now, multiple videos on this, so I'm not even going to get into it. It's a record power DX4000. It's plenty powerful enough for what I need. It will do a plumbed system, and it will also work with hand tools. Like I say, for the size of this thing, it has tons of power, and it does below 0.5 microns, which is what you want. Now, the new thing I did add last year was a wireless control system for this dust extractor. So I have some contactors here, so it sends power through the contactors to these sockets, and there's a little wireless controller inside in here that switches those contactors, and it uses these wireless kinetic switches. So there's no power in these, there's no batteries. It's the actual movement of the switch generates a charge that sends a radio signal to that receiver and switches on the dust extractor. And off again, just like that. So I have multiple of these around my shops at various tools, and I can just hit these on and off and switch on and off my dust extractor. So a nice handy system, and a full video on how to install this is on my channel as well. So that's the dust extractor. This is my planer thicknesser. Again, loads of videos on this. I'm not going to get into it. It's pretty good. It's a charmwood 8x10, so it has an 8-inch depth by a 10-inch width, and it's a pretty decent machine. The blades, you have to sharpen them kind of regularly enough. I would love a helical cutter in a planer thicknesser, but you know, this one wasn't overly expensive, so it does the job, gives you pretty good results. Other than the blades in it, it's a pretty good machine. Let's move on. Now, just moving on up, this is my lathe, and I really have not used my lathe at all last year. I really want to do some more wood turning stuff. Just didn't have time, didn't get round to it, it just didn't come up. But it's a record power DML320. It's a great little lathe, really well made. Does everything I need to do. It has plenty of power for what I do for wood turning. And wood turning itself is a whole discipline on its own. It's a whole rabbit hole that you can go down to, separate from, say, hand tool or power tool woodworking. You could just spend a whole lifetime doing wood turning. But yeah, like I said, I haven't used this much. So hopefully you'll get a few more videos in the coming year of doing a little bit more wood turning, because I definitely need to develop my wood turning skills. They're not great, I will be honest with you. But that's my wood lathe. Not got much use in the last year. Let's move on. Okay, moving on up then from my lathe is my bandsaw. Now this I added new to the shop last year. I did a video on it. I will do a full review video on this machine. I done an unboxing video on it, but this is the Axminster Trade AT3227B. I bought this from the carpentry store above in Naas in Ireland. You guys are always asking me, especially my Irish viewers, where do I get my woodworking gear? Well, the carpentry store is one of the places I go to in Ireland. They do all the Axminster stuff and they do all the Ujk stuff as well there, so definitely check them out. I'll leave a link below in the description. But that's where I bought this machine. It's a big upgrade on my previous machine, so it's a 400mm throat by a 300mm depth of cut, so that's 16 inches by 12 inches, and it's been an absolute pleasure to use, especially for resawing large boards. I can't fault it in any way, shape or form. Now there's a new model available. This is the previous model, so they've upgraded a few different parts, they've changed a few different things, but yeah, an absolutely solid machine. I can't recommend them highly enough, and yeah, this has been a great addition to the shop. So let's move on. Now, not much to say about this corner of the shop. Just have an air compressor there and my pillar drill, a record power pillar drill. This one now is over 20 years old, cast iron, bulletproof. Not much to say about it. It's a solid pillar drill. I made a bench or tabletop for it with a removable sacrificial center. You must slide this out and replace it. Other than that, it's just a few hand tools and stuff in this corner. Bit of a messy corner. Let's move on. Okay, so moving on around then, this is the backdrop that you see behind me in most of my videos. This is my hand tool cabinet. Now I added this new last year. I kind of did a build series on it. It's kind of a mix of power tool and hand tool woodworking to put this together. So the main carcass itself is made from birch ply, so it's nice, quick and easy to make, good and stable, and it's shop furniture at the end of the day. And I just added a few hand tool hardwood accents, some maple or ash and sapele drawers. I have some sapele there. I have some sapele and some walnut in the hand plane till and things like that. And I have a full video on making all this stuff. It's a lovely backdrop. It's a great place to store all the hand tools. Hand tool woodworking is my favorite type of woodworking, and there's just something about using hand tools that is I just find very engaging, and you can get kind of into a flow state when you're using your hand tools. You can kind of get lost in it. It's nice, quiet, and it doesn't generate a whole pile of dust. So just measurement gear here, so rulers, squares, all that kind of stuff, calipers, marking gauges, all that good stuff, all marking and measuring there. Then I have my saw tail here, so I have some Japanese hand saws. Great way to get into woodworking is to get yourself some Japanese hand saws because they're really good quality and they're not very expensive. So that's one thing I would always recommend, because hand tool woodworking, any kind of woodworking can get expensive, but a good way to get into it is with the Japanese hand saws. I just have a fret saw there from Crimson Guitars. I used to do a bit of guitar making. I haven't made one in a long time now. I must try and get back and make one again, but that's a fret saw. That's what that is. I have a saw that I got from my 40th birthday. This is a beautiful saw. It's a bad axe, a large tenon saw. Now I haven't had a chance to use this yet, so it's kind of just sitting there as a decoration at the minute, but I had intended on building a workbench, a new hand tool workbench, and I was going to use this in that process. It didn't pan out, so maybe this year. I'm not going to make any promises the way the world is, but I have some Veritas saws there as well. Really like them. Quang Sheng planes, big fan of them. Got them from Workshop Heaven. I've done videos on all this, so I'm just kind of running through it fairly quickly. Lloyd Nielsen low angle jack plane, absolutely beautiful. One of my favorite tools is the Lubin or the Quang Sheng Lubin plow plane. I love using that. We have a Veritas router plane up there. An apron plane, a rebate plane, and some really old Stanleys as well, which I keep here. Some Stanley Sweethearts and stuff like that. They're over 100 years old. US made Stanleys, and there's an English made Stanley Bailey plane there as well. A couple other different tools, some Japanese chisels, love using them. Some Ashley Oils chisels here, some cheaper Stanley chisels. I'm kind of sorted for hand tools. There's not really much more that I need. The only thing I might add is some mortise chisels. I want to get some of those, and I think from then on I'm pretty much set hand tool wise. So yeah, that's my hand tool cabinet, and again, I'm a big fan of hand tools, and there's videos on all the stuff that's in here. Let's move on. Okay, moving over into this corner then. This was my old tool cabinet, so that was my old hand tool cabinet. Now it's full of whiskey bottles. So if you guys are ever wondering what's going on here, I actually have a second YouTube channel where I do whiskey reviews. Now, I haven't had as much time this year, or last year I should say, to do as many whiskey reviews as I would have liked, but I do the odd whiskey review every now and again. I do it in my workshop at my workbench, and people seem to really enjoy it. So I'll link that channel below as well if you guys haven't seen it yet. That's why the whiskey bottles are here. This is actually part of the backdrop for the whiskey review channel as well. So moving around, this is actually Matt Esley's cabinet. I actually have his toolbox there as well that I made. So I'm actually using this now to store some PPE. So PPE, extremely important. If you're doing any kind of woodworking, hobbyist woodworkers are exposed, they say, to more dust, or 10 times the dust than a professional shop, because just dust extraction and stuff will not be as good as a professional shop. So just, you know, PPE is essential, guys. Ear protection, eye protection, all that good stuff. So I just have that in here. One question I get asked a lot is, what is my respirator or dust mask? So there it is there. That's the Trend Stealth dust mask. I actually have 2 of those. Really comfortable. You can wear them for a long time. I really like them. They do the job well, and you can replace the filters in the side of it as well. So that's my dust masks. I have a 3M dust mask in there, 2 of the Trend Stealths in there. And just in the drawer then, I just have some safety goggles. So it's all there, I know where it is, and I always leave some goggles and ear protection scattered around the shop, so it's always near to hand, because I find you will take a chance. If it's not to hand, you will just run that saw just for 2 seconds, but every time you do that, you do damage your ear, so just be careful. This section then, this is all kind of the power tools and charging section, so the batteries for the cameras, for the audio equipment, all my drills and stuff is just here. It's just a nice place to store it. A few drills here, some Milwaukee, some really old DeWalt's. I actually have a new drill that I'm testing out here. So Trend have just released their battery range of tools, and they sent me a couple to check out. So I'm trying out this and also their router. And I have to say, I really like the drill. It's very well priced. So I looked this up online. For the body only, it's about €70, and it's a metal Jacobs chuck, metal gears, and lithium-ion batteries, and a brushless motor for €70. That's pretty fantastic. So if it lives up and performs well, I will be able to recommend this, but I'll do a future review on it, so to give you guys a sneak peek of what's coming up. So that's it. That's kind of my power tools section, charging station. Keep all my PPE here so I know where it is. I have all my tools and stuff down here, so the tool cabinets and what have you. And this is the beginning of my miter saw station as well, which I have a full video on. So let's move on. Okay, moving on down, here is my miter saw station, and I have a full video on building this actual station. It's actually one of my most popular videos. Now, one of the questions I get asked a hell of a lot is, where did I get my shroud or my tent for my miter saw? Well, I actually did a video on this as well. This is just an old gazebo that was pretty well beaten up, so I just cut it up and made a tent out of it for my miter saw, and it works absolutely fantastically. You could do this with an old tent, same material, just cut it up, build yourself a shroud for your miter saw. It just keeps all the dust in there. So I have this hooked up to my main dust extractor here, so it goes down into a gully at the back of the miter saw, so it pulls all the air down in here. And I also have a shop vac underneath here as well, which I have up onto the back of the miter saw. So the miter saw is one of the biggest offenders for scattering dust around the shop. It can really be hazardous to your health, so anything you can do to cover in your miter saw is a great idea. So a full video on this. Nice, cheap, simple, just an old tore up gazebo. Ran a knife through it, stapled it around the miter saw, and you have a nice shroud for your miter saw to keep all that dust in there. It works absolutely fantastically. Now, the miter saw itself, I spoke about this loads of times, did a full review on it. It's the Bosch GCM 12 SDE. It's a monster of a miter saw. It's about 30 kilos in weight, so it's pretty heavy. So it just stays there. I don't move it at all. So it's ideal for a shop, but if you're using this out on site, it would be very, very heavy indeed. But it's a big capacity. But obviously the size, it's a disadvantage, so it takes up a lot of space as well. Unlike the glide arm miter saw that they have, which is the same size, but the arm can go back in against the wall. So this one, it's on the guide rods or guide rails, so it does take up quite a bit of space, but other than that, a fantastic saw. So let's move on. Just before we move on, actually, there is one of those kinetic switches that I showed you at the start, so I can switch on my dust extraction and switch it off, and you can add up to 10 of them around the shop at all your machines. So once you have your blast gates set to whatever machine you're on, you can just knock it on and off as you're working at that machine, so it's a very handy system indeed. So very quickly, just moving on down, and this is the rest of my miter saw station. So just a little bit of storage underneath. It's not very tidy under there. I do need to kind of organise that a bit better. Some sanders and stuff down there, a diamond wheel, whetstone grinder for sharpening all the tools. Store that down there. Quick bit of a lumber storage rack. I use the bottom shelf of my storage rack for my cross-cut sled. So I built a large cross-cut sled for the table saw that I got. I'll show you that now in a minute. But full video on that. That just slots in there. And it's kind of out of the way there. I tried try to keep this table as clear as possible. I don't always succeed because this is essentially the left-hand side of my miter saw station. So I'm cutting large planks. I set them in there for my miter saw. So I want to keep this as free as possible. So this doesn't actually get in the way. It doesn't actually stick out further than my bench. So it stops me putting stuff here as well. And it allows me to use my miter saw. And I can just slide that out and throw it over on my Mft table if it's ever in the way. But yeah, that's where that sits. Just a timber storage rack and a little bit of storage here. Let's move on. Okay, just down this corner again, a bit of a messy corner, but this is my timber storage rack now. It's a mobile timber storage rack that I built, and again I have a full video on this, but it's not too mobile at the minute. It's kind of buried with loads of stuff that I've kept. I don't throw anything out. I'm a bit of a hoarder when it comes to wood. I'm not sure if half the stuff in this is any good, but I just never want to throw out any bits of hardwood. I just think that's such a waste, and I hate throwing them in the fire, even though they may be not good for anything, but I store as much of it as I can, because you never know when you want to make a little handle, or you want to make something for a jig, or you need a small bit of timber just for something. It's there, but it is starting to pile up, so I'm going to have to do something about it. So I don't want to get it too out of hand, and I don't like having a cluttered up workshop. My clamp rack is there, so I've added a good few clamps this year. I've actually added the Celta shop clamps, the parallel jaw clamps, and the F clamps. They're absolutely fantastic. They're really well priced. I've sent a few of those. I've actually bought a good few of those myself. I really like them, and I highly recommend them. They're very well priced, and they are extremely strong, and they get a solid clamping force. So if you're in the market for some clamps, definitely check out Celta shop, and you won't go too far wrong with those ones. So yeah, that's kind of this corner. That's kind of around the workshop. Now the main kind of parts of the middle of the workshop are my workbenches. I'll give you a quick look at those, especially the Mft table, because I've done a lot of work on that. So let's do that. Okay, the workbenches themselves. Now, full videos on all this stuff, so I'm going to run through this very, very quickly. I have just a couple of mocks and voices that I've built, a couple of jigs. So there's a donkey-eared mitered shooting board, again, completely made with hand tools, for hand tools, and fits into your voice. So I have multiple jigs all under this bench, and I have full videos on the whole lot, if you guys ever want to check them out. There is kind of a standard mocks and voice with the screw type handles. Love this. Mocks and voices are great because you can clamp them anywhere to any work surface, and they raise the work up a bit, just makes it easier to work and saves the back. This is a kind of a mocks and voice that I built, I kind of designed myself, so it's a cam lock mocks and voice. So it uses two cams to lock the mocks and voice. It's not 100% to where I would like it to be. It does give a really solid clamping force, but the front jaws do tilt a little. That's the only design flaw that I have with this. Other than that, works absolutely fantastic. Completely made from wood, so there's no metal parts in it as well. Again, full video available on that. This is my miniature workbench. Again, these are ideal for lifting work up, so you're not bending over the whole time. So you can make these any height you want to sit on top of your main workbench, just for doing fine detailed work. Again, it's anything to save the back, so you're not bending over all the time. Just raises that work up. So that's what I use that for. Okay, my main kind of hand tool woodworking workbench. This was made by 4x2s or 2x4s. This is the Paul Sellers workbench. So definitely check out Paul Sellers' channel and how to build a workbench. If you want to build yourself one of these, I highly recommend Paul's channel. He's an amazing woodworker. He's been at it for his whole life, and he's got a lifetime of experience. But great workbench. I promised last year I was going to build a new hand tool woodworking bench, but I never got around to it. You just can't plan anything in the current climate, and the price of materials has just skyrocketed. It's gone through the roof, so I'm going to wait till material prices get to a bit more reasonable before I even attempt and build a workbench. So I'm not going to promise I'm going to do it this year. I would love to do it this year. We'll see how the year pans out. Like I said, everything is just up in the air, and you can't really plan anything at the minute. So that's my main hand tool woodworking bench. I've added a wagon voice to it, or a tail voice to it this year. I used an actual screw and system from a leg voice. It's a really cheap, cost-effective way of doing this. Again, there's a full video on how to retrofit this into your bench. It works fantastic. Other than that, pretty cool bench. I have the cam lock leg voice right here. So during the first lockdown, I kind of designed this, and it works absolutely fantastic. So I built a hardwood version of this when I build my hand tool woodworking bench. But yeah, I'm really happy with this. A few more tweaks and it'll be absolutely perfect. But again, it's a complete leg voice, works on a cam, all wooden parts, no metal parts required, and it gets a serious clamping force. And there's multiple videos on this thing if you want to check it out. Okay, so this is my other workbench. This is my Mft table. It's my assembly table. It's where I do my sanding. I also have a router table built into it. I've also tons of storage in it. So a full build series on this. Again, it's like a 4x2 or 2x4 frame. I have an MDF top. I use the Ujk power guide system to make this Mft top. It's got a massive amount of use. This has been a real fantastic addition to my shop. I have a sacrificial strip in the middle that I can replace. So with this track saw, my Bosch track saw, is probably one of the most used tools I've had in my shop, and this Mft table has been absolutely fantastic. I've kitted out a couple of vans for storage and racks and stuff like that just on this Mft table. I've done loads of work and projects for the house on it. You guys will have seen me use it loads of times in all my videos, and it's kind of an ongoing project. I have added wheels and stuff to it so I can jack it up and wheel this out of the way, store all my tools on it. I had intended on turning part of this into a downdraft table. Never got round to it, and it turns out I never needed to. Once I got that Fest tool, it's the ETC sander. Again, I've done a full video on this. The dust extraction from this sander is so good that it literally, there's no dust escapes from it. So a downdraft table would just be kind of superfluous, really. That's a fantastic sander. Again, full video on that. My Bosch track saw a full video on that as well. But yeah, that's kind of my Mft table. And again, I have remote switches here so I can switch on and off my dust extraction system. Here's another thing I made last year. This is a hose. I've added some braided covering to it so it doesn't snag on stuff. I've also put a power line with Nutric quick connect couples on the end of it that I can just quick connect all my machines to, all my sanders. It plugs in just overhead here. I can hit the remote switch. It sends power to this lead. So I use my table saw, which I'll show you now in a second. I use all my sanders and stuff. So it forces me to use my dust extraction. So because all my machines are powered through this lead, I can just quick connect them to this lead, hit on my dust extractor. It then sends power to the lead as well as turning on the dust extractor. And then you know you're using the dust extractor for those tools, if you get me. So, and there's full videos on all this stuff, how to do all this stuff on the channel as well. So yeah, this has gotten tons of use. Okay, so just over my Mft table is my air filter. So this is the Axminster Trade AT25AFS, and it's a pretty good air filtration system just to take all that fine dust out of the air. Now, it's not going to capture all the dust in the shop, but it does create a really nice airflow around the shop. I can let this run for 1, 2 or 4 hours after I leave. I leave it run all the time when I'm using my machines, and it just takes all that fine dust out of the air. You can see how much dust is on the filter there, and health is wealth. I can't stress it enough. You don't want to be breathing in that fine dust. That's the stuff that can cause all the damage to the lungs and even cause cancer and stuff, especially manufactured timber products. Even some hardwoods can be highly irritating to your lungs. So if you're in this hobby, or if you're even in the profession of woodworking, take care of your lungs, because you want to be woodworking until you're 90 if you can get away with it. And spending a few pound on an air filter system and a proper dust extractor and proper respirators, it's worth everything, guys. Get that sorted first. I can't recommend it highly enough. You don't have to get one as big as this. If you're only in a small shed or a small shop, still get yourself one of these. Get maybe a Record Power or the small craft version from Axminster. Anything you can do to get that fine dust out of the air and save your lungs. Believe me, you will not regret it. And like I said, health is wealth. So yeah, that's my air filter. Again, not 100% effective, but it is helping. Okay, so that's the main machines and benches in my shop. Now I'm just going to very quickly run through some power tools and jigs that I really enjoyed using all of last year. So we'll very quickly do that and then we'll wrap up this video. Okay, first up, I've been using this a lot. This is the Celta Router Lift Mini with the Celta router that fits into it. Absolutely fantastic bit of kit. Now this was sent to me and I've done multiple videos on it, but just the quick release aspect of this for tool changing is just absolutely fantastic. It's just pull a lever and you can change the router bit, so there's no messing around with collets and spanners and all that kind of stuff, and it's so easy to adjust. Absolutely fantastic bit of kit. Really enjoyed using this all last year. Okay, next up, a tool I've mentioned already, and I bought this last year, so I bought this with my own money. This was not sent to me. This is the Festool ETS EC155. So this is the one with the 5mm stroke. And if you want a sander to do everything from quick stock removal to finishing, then this is an absolutely exceptional sander. They are bloody expensive, that's the only thing. Festool stuff is expensive, but if you were just to buy one sander to do you for a very, very long time, I highly recommend this. It's nice, quiet, you can use it for hours, you don't get that massive vibration through your hands. You still do have to take a break now, because sanding for a long time you can actually damage the nerve endings in your hands, so just be careful of that. But this is nice, comfortable to use. You can use it upright, you can use it, grip it multiple different ways. You get an amazing finish from it, and the dust extraction from this is just exceptional. You can sand for hours and there will be no dust on the work surface afterwards. The dust extraction is that good from it, so I highly recommend this, and this is one of my favourite tools that I've bought last year. It actually makes sanding a pleasure, and sanding is an absolute pain, as you guys will know. So a great tool. It is expensive, but when you consider it will be one sander to do everything, then it might make sense for some of you guys out there, so I can highly recommend that. Okay, so very quickly, this is a tool that I got recently, and this one was actually sent to me, so full disclosure, this was sent to me by the guys at the carpentry store, and this is the Ujk Dovetail Jig. Now, I've been using this a lot over the last few weeks, doing all sorts of finger joints, dovetail joints, half blind or half lap dovetails, and cutting grooves, and just practicing with it. It's an absolutely fantastic bit of kit, especially for knocking out lots of different boxes and stuff like that, where you have lots of different dovetails. So if you're in a kind of a production shop and you wanted to do dovetails, but you think maybe dovetails are too time consuming and costly to do, then maybe this is a good option. Now, one downside I will say is that the dovetails do not look as good as hand cut dovetails. There's no comparison. The dovetails that come off this, they are even, they are uniform. The gap in the dovetail, or the pins in the tails, are the same width, so they do look good, they fit absolutely perfectly, but there's just something about a hand cut dovetail when you have those really fine pins, and you can make them to your own size and what suits your eye. You can't do that with this. That's the only downside to it. But when it comes to batching out work and you want to get some hand tails if you're doing some cabinetry and stuff like that, and yeah, definitely have a look at this. It's a fantastic jig. Okay, so another tool I've been using lately and I've been really enjoying. I haven't showed you guys this one yet. Now, full disclosure as well, as it starts to lash rain, this one was sent to me by Trend. So I'm not been paid to say anything about this, but it was sent to me, so I have to let you guys know that. But this is their new trim router. Again, this is part of their new battery system. But I've been using this router. You might have seen me use it in a couple of videos on the last few projects. It comes with the plunge base and also the palm held base as well. Again, it's part of their new battery system. It's a really nice bit of kit, I have to say. There's tons of power in this little router. It's really nicely made. So I'm putting this through its paces at the minute. I'm testing it out, finding out what I like and what I don't like about it. So far, everything is pretty positive on it. I really like using it in this format because it's nice, light, plenty of power, and there's no leads. Yeah, so it's a really nice setup, and it's working on our new battery system. They have new battery tools out, just like that drill I showed you. But yeah, this is going to do a full review. This is going to be coming up. That's another, just a little mention of a tool that I've really enjoyed using over the last few weeks, is the Trend router. Okay guys, so there we go. The first video of 2022 is now in the bag, and just kick it off with a workshop tour. I'll give you guys a quick look around, especially for anybody that's new to my channel. You can see my workshop. It's definitely come a long way since the garden shed. Even since I first put this workshop together, it has really come a long way over the last couple of years. Even the channel has gone over 50,000 subscribers now, which is absolutely fantastic. And I think this is the first year that I'm pretty much sorted now. I think I have my workshop to where I want it. I think I have all the bases covered. I don't really need any new machines or any new tools. I think I'm fully kitted out now. It took me 20 years to get here, so if any of you guys are looking at this saying, I wish I had that set up, well, just keep the dream alive and work towards it, and it will happen. Like I said, it took me 20 years to get to where I am and put all this stuff together. But yeah, pretty happy with the workshop now. And thanks very much guys for all your support over the last few years. It's been absolutely amazing. All your comments, all your questions, all your advice, especially to the guys over on Patreon who support the channel, guys, very much appreciated as well. So that's it guys. As the storm rolls in now and it's going to get hard to hear me, I'm going to get out of here. So I'll see you in the next video. We've plenty of projects coming up planned for the new year. So yeah, thanks very much. I shall see you in the next one guys. Take it easy.